Hey everyone. Hi, Brett. Today I'm here with Brette Goldstein. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm just going to give everyone a little bit of a background on Brett. Brett has cast 5 television series for USA, LMN, Lifetime, History Channel, Investigation Discovery, over 50 independent films, 200 commercials, and 100 plays, and 7 pilot presentations, including Odd Mom Out for Bravo and numerous new media projects. She was also the resident casting director at Washington, D.C.'s Folger Elizabethan Theater for 10 seasons. Films Brett has cast have won awards and been official selections at most of the major film festivals, including Sundance, Tribeca, and Cannes Film Festival. Brett is the former co-producing director of the Washington Jewish Theater, production manager at Washington Shakespeare Company, and associate producer at the Washington Theater Festival. She is also working on 3 projects, 1 series and 2 films in development, and is currently casting an independent film and some commercials. Brett, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Hunter. Thanks for having me. And I just want to say I love your site and just the resources you provide for actors.
Yay.
Incredible and so just easy to navigate, and I'm really impressed. So Mazel Tov.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And I started it out because I remember what it was like starting as a new actor, and you don't know anything. You don't know where to turn for information. Yeah, exactly. It's just you're kind of, you're running around in the dark. So that was the intention, is just to provide people who wanted to get into the business with some information. So again, thank you for doing this interview today. And I'm going to just jump in with some questions for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So I see that you have a pretty extensive background in theater production. Can you tell, how did you get into casting? Were you ever an actor? Did you start out as an actress, or are you just doing theater production? Did you take theater in school?
As a very, very young actress, and we're not talking about professional here, I was born amongst all of the Ashkenazi Jews in the Jersey Shore area, lived there for 6 wonderful years. I missed the beach and love that tremendously. Then we moved to Virginia for a few months, then Maryland, and it's we didn't have the internet. It was the 80s. There was no professional acting stuff there.
Yeah.
And I remember I was always playing back when dumb blonde roles existed. You remember, I was always the Miss Adelaide and the Guys and Dolls type stuff or whatever, because I could dance. And I remember getting cast as Lola in the musical Damn Yankees when I was 16. And I remember saying to my friends, too many lines to memorize, and it's such I don't know, it just seems deep and complex, and I just don't want to think that much, so fuck acting. And Lola and Damn Yankees was way too much for me to wrap my little brain around, so I never really wanted to pursue it. This is actually kind of funny and a little bit embarrassing. When I was in a costume history class, when I was basically
Sorry, what kind of class? What kind of
costume history class, in undergraduate. It was a requirement. We had to take it at University of Maryland, and I was pretty much majoring in weed, not really majoring in theater. And I also had to work a part-time job, so I couldn't do any of the plays. So I was half in, half out. No one really knew what to do with me anyway. Because I was a lot like this, probably much fatter at the age of 19, 20, 21, with these big 80s bangs. And
I remember.
I didn't even get cast in hair. It was that fucked up. No one knew what to do with me. And so I remember on the one day a month I would attend class, a girlfriend of mine, Phaedra Henley, turned to me and said, you know what? No offense, but you're a smart Jewish girl and you are pissing it all away. Fucking do something. And then she gave me a notebook paper where she had written Source Theater Company, Washington Theater Festival. And she said, there's an internship program. Maybe you're not into school, but do that. Just do something, because you're a waste. And I said, okay. And I called them and I got involved in the internship program, and weirdly I got accepted. And I remember seeing this middle-aged woman who was the only person that seemed to have her own air conditioning vent. It was just about where her desk was placed. In Washington, D.C., which is just hellfire. I mean, it's literally built on a swamp, D.C. And she had the back of her hair was doing this from the air conditioning. I remember her shoving lo mein in her face. She was eating Chinese food, and she was on the phone all day. And once in a while, hot guys would come down and give her alcohol and fruit baskets. And I was fascinated. The only time she got up was when she had to pee. And the rest of the time she was on the phone, and I loved the phone. And meanwhile, I was stuck running light boards in these tiny little shitty, sound booths or whatever. And I didn't want to do this. I was like, what does she do? And they said, well, she's the casting director. Do not talk to her. Don't bother her. She's working on next season. She has nothing to do with the festival. Stay away from her. And I kvetched and bitched and moaned and they said, one day, you get one day with her. And then you shut up. And I said, absolutely, you got it, no problem, one day. And I had one day with her, and I looked at her and I said, I'm gonna have your job in 6 months. And of course,
no way.
Yeah, probably around the time Single White Female came out, and she was like, God damn it, she thought I was gonna throw her down the stairs. And I didn't murder her, but in 6 months, she got a job teaching full-time at Georgetown, and I got her job.
Interesting. Oh, wow. Talk about putting it out to the universe. And what an incredibly visceral memory. I mean, of all these little things, that's so incredible.
Well, because it was crazy, right? Like, I don't remember shit. My memory is terrible. But I remember that because it was like, I said it to her face. I remember feeling it burning in my cheeks when I said it to her. Like, don't say that. You sound like a psychopath. And I said it to her, and she was clearly scared. And then I got the job 6 months, almost a day later.
Wow.
And here was the catch. I was a kid. I mean, I was like 22 or something like that. She was probably my age now. She was probably mid-40s. And they were like, oh, but see, the money kind of ran away a little bit. So we have this much to pay you. Meanwhile, she probably had a full-time salary and benefits.
Right.
She was in her mid-40s. So I waited tables at 2 restaurants and did that full-time. And I loved it.
Wow. That's really phenomenal. Okay, cool. So this is like your life's work then. Like, you've been in the business, like you've been casting forever. Like,
yeah, it's been a while. I mean, like, if I got that, I don't know, probably like it's been 20 something years, right? I'm 47 now. I can't do math, but like I basically started, in probably like 23, when I was 23, something like that. But also too, it was the 90s. Like, you could get jobs like that. Like, people who, I took that for granted, like Clinton was president, and it was just like, oh, there's jobs for everybody. And I loved it. It was great.
Yeah. And and I remember, we're roughly the same age, and it was just, and everybody says, oh, it was easier when I was younger, but it really was, it just was. So, okay. So let me ask you something else then. Since, you've been at this for a while. I was going to ask you what your casting process is like, but also how has it evolved? I'm really curious how it's evolved since then. So, what's the process like for you now, beginning, middle, end, and what was it like that? Like, how have you evolved along the way as a person, as a casting director?
Well, first of all, a big thing that's changed is that everything went from being in person and on the phone to digital.
Right.
And like, for as much as I like the fact that I don't have to report to an office in Midtown and be on the phone all day, and I really do miss it, because you really had relationships with people on a really different level. And also too, like even my first years in New York as a casting associate or very young casting director, I would talk to, these younger agents, you would talk to your peers all the time on the phone. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this from your short time in New York, but remember Time Out New York? You probably at least have heard of it. You guys. Yeah. And there was a sex column at the back of the thing, the last page, sexpert column. And I remember once reading it, because of course you'd rush to get Time Out New York on Thursdays from the newspaper vendor. God, I sound old, Jesus Christ. And I remember getting it, and I read one of the letters, and I was like, fucking A. And I called a friend of mine who was an agent at a small boutique agency here, and I said, your girlfriend's cheating on you. She wrote in anonymously to Time Out New York. I don't know how I know this. I've never met her, but I know it's her. Go home, ask her. If she acts a little weird, break up with her. And I was right.
No way.
You just knew people on this weird level where you could do weird shit like that. Like, it was, and you know each other's taste, and it's very different now. So yeah, I could go to the beach with like nearly no cell reception and click through and do my job on my cell phone, but it doesn't have that heart that it used to have. And everyone cries poverty, and like everything is shortened. Everything is condensed. I remember doing pre-screens in person before initial auditions for independent films. You don't get to do that anymore. Everything is
Oh,
fast.
wow. Wow. That's a huge shift. And I do remember, like, the same thing as, when I came up, and I came up through the theater, and then I got into doing film and television, and like, so, roughly the same time, same age. And I know what you mean about things going digital. Like, I remember having to schlep the headshots around, and I remember, show fax. It's called that because it used to be sent out via fax, right? You remember that? And it was just, agents had to send the hard copies in every day. And I've told that to younger actors now, and they're like, "What?" And it's like, yeah, man, that was by courier.
Oh yeah, like
So,
I remember in 2001, this was like the last job I had formally working for casting directors before things got really weird after 9/11, and I was like, I'm not sure I can
yeah.
work for anybody like this anymore. But I remember it was like probably right before 9/11, and I remember I convinced my boss to rent. They wouldn't buy one because they thought it was a fad. They rented like a 60-pound laptop, and for 10 minutes a day, I was allowed to carry it into their office. I had like the outside
Wow.
door. They had an office. I walked into these two partners, their office. I was allowed
Mhm.
to put the laptop on my lap,
Uh-huh.
plug it into the fax machine, that they were scared because it meant 10 minutes without a possible fax coming in. I was allowed to use
Right.
it for 10 minutes a day, and they were like, this fad is going to go away. And then I would go back out and sit there and be on the phone. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. So, okay, and I'm laughing because I can relate. I can tell, like, I can relate to all of this. Yeah, I remember when we had dial-up internet, and when the first online casting accounts came out. So here's a little fun fact for you. Um, the first online casting service, I don't know if it was Casting Workbook or whichever one it was, I was in the first 50 people to join. How about,
Wow.
because then I remember hearing about it and thinking, yep, this whole internet thing that's gonna take off, and this casting thing's gonna work. So yes, now I feel incredibly old.
But you
So
know what?
now that we what?
But remember, like, but here's what you miss now, right? Do you remember you having to go into casting offices in order to read a script, but you were allowed to read it there, but
Yes,
you couldn't take it
yes.
often. You
Oh
had to
my
like
gosh,
read
I
the script,
forgot
right?
about that. Yes,
Yeah,
sitting
yeah,
there, and
yeah.
you brought like a drink or something and maybe a sandwich because you were going to be there for a few hours reading a
Right.
script before you went back to audition the next day.
Right. And so
Yeah.
I miss those days too, because I mean, I remember like a young Anthony Mackie had just gotten out of Juilliard, and I'll never forget, like, just kind of like sitting at the edge of my desk, just like watching him read. And it's like, am I making you uncomfortable? Am I making you uncomfortable? Like, obviously, totally before, like, I was like, let me think of all the poor men I probably Me Too while they were reading scripts. Like, they weren't reading, they were reading fucking scripts. I was totally getting in their way. But I mean, you met so many wonderful
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
You did, and you're right. And you're just so much more connected because you would meet. You got to know the casting directors like really well. Like, you were on a first name basis. You knew about people's kids. You knew the other actors, and you just knew everybody. It was just, I think it was much more friendly and personable. Um, yeah, it was really really relationship based at the time.
Yeah.
So, having said that, what is your casting process like now, and where do actors fit in when you're doing it now?
Now, I guess I just have to be really smart and specific and strategic about who I bring
Hmm.
in, because, well, now there's something that I've noticed. I think it's
Hmm.
important for actors to know. There's a bit of fatigue, I think, on a physiological level, that a company is looking at all of these self tapes that are
Mm.
often very, very poorly produced and very different from each other.
Hmm.
And so the more that actors can make their self tapes either look like what we would see on a set, which could be fine, like the way that you're set up right now, where things look
Hmm.
very beautiful and high end, and like, and it's nothing in your background, as opposed to this shit, but like nothing in your background is distracting. Like, the world that you, Hunter, have created is lovely.
Hmm.
Or like a blue screen, something that replicates what I would create in a casting studio with good
Hmm.
lighting. Like, if you don't have one or the other, and you're shooting from like down here, you're shooting from up here, whatever, all those
Hmm.
little things start to they start to tire out
That makes sense.
everyone's limbic system. Yeah. So
Yeah.
because of that, people don't have the stamina in terms of watching, let's say, 100 tapes like they used to,
Right.
when everything looked consistent and
Hmm.
alike. So now I have to be even more careful about you know, who I bring in, the tapes that I select to show whoever I'm working for, and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and especially because we can't be in the room together.
Yeah.
I do have a wonderful guy who does virtual callbacks for me. He's based in LA, and that's great when we can actually talk to actors, and have the director there, and do
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. But like with the self tapes, there's not a lot we can control. And so it's so, you know, unfortunately the onus is on the actor to like make something look really good and well produced, so that
Mm-hmm.
it builds that rapport and relationship with us, and then with the creative and production team as well.
Cool. Okay, so I have two questions out of that for you. Um, so first one, before I forget, the virtual callbacks. Can you talk a little bit more about the virtual callbacks?
Yeah, so I know that some people are doing it via Zoom, and I know there's a few different services, but I personally work with a guy named Joe Brundage out in LA, who worked with Beth Melsky, who's a casting director here,
Yeah.
and she might still have an office there, I'm not sure. But he is amazing, and he has written software and code for this basically very, very, very fancy Zoom. So what it looks like on our end is like my logo will be on it. He brands it for the casting director.
Oh, cool.
Schedule. There's size cards below the screens. Like it'll basically spotlight like what you would have on Zoom. The actor, when the actor is working, the actor will only see the people on our end whose cameras are on. So often that's like maybe just the director or me and or the director. They won't see the people, you know, who don't want to be seen. There's a chat box for us on the right. And there's also a virtual waiting room where Joe and his staff prepare the actors. They make sure they're near their router. They make sure the internet works, that the lighting is good, that their hair and makeup is well done, that they're prepared, that everything is set up properly. So they're doing that, and I don't even know what's happening. So it's incredible. And frankly, I would stay with this for the rest of my life. And as much as I love actors, and as much as I miss working with them in person, I also can't get sick with all the immunosuppressant drugs that I'm on. So I
Mhm.
hope to hold on to the system as long as I possibly can, because these virtual callbacks are incredible.
That is really cool. I'm going to look up that company. I had no idea this was going on. That is awesome. How long have you been using this system?
I think I've used it like 6 or 7 times already. And I think his service is
Wow.
like Hey Joe or something. And he's also doing a lot of on set work. I don't know what you would call it, but basically like he'll end up with a virtual, it's like a virtual video village situation where like the
Uh-huh.
director can be working from home, um, and the script supervisor, and there's like very, very
Hmm.
few people on set, because the less people on set, the safer it is. So I know that
Right.
he's doing a lot of that stuff too, and he's so good at it. He's got like he's great because he can work really, really well with people, but he's also like a tech nerd, so it's like the perfect combination of.
Awesome. God bless him. I mean, really, that is so incredible, so phenomenal. Good for him for jumping on that. Yeah, I'm going to look it up. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so another question I have about self tapes, because there's so, I mean, everybody's talking about self tapes these days, obviously, because they've just blown up. Although they've been around for a long time, and it's funny. I mean, we still call them tapes. Like I remember when we actually had to tape them and
Right.
schlep the tape around, right? So, but you personally, and I know every casting director is different, but you personally, do you prefer to see something like a room setup, or do you want a blank wall, blank backdrop for a self tape?
I don't mind either way, but if it's going to be a room setup, I need it to be as beautiful and minimal,
Mm,
and and also as perfect for whatever the audition is for,
good
as the
point.
way you have created your space. Like you are the example right now. So
Mm,
and the reason why I say that is because, I mean, yeah, you got a blue screen and good lights and the whole schmagegi.
mhm.
That's great. I love that. But I will say, and I will say that in the last few commercials, because that's basically mostly what I've been working on throughout the pandemic, there was a woman who somehow, I still don't even understand how she did it. She turned her guest room into a hospital room. And it was like, and what was crazy was like she's over 50, right? And it's like for
Uh-huh.
some, you know, it's like usually like the over 50 demographic is like, I can't do self tapes, fuck you. Like it's just so, she turned out like you could turn her room into a guest room, and like she had like a chart on the wall where clearly nurses had checked off certain things, and like she created a world that didn't distract from
Wow.
her as the performer, but really looked like she was sitting in a hospital room. The minute I saw that, I was like, perfect. And I moved her right to the top, and she booked the job and like did the exact same
Wow.
callbacks. Then there was another guy, also a medical thing. He just booked, and all he did was have like a very, very simple room, but he had an eye chart on the wall. And he barely ever referred to it, but all of a sudden you were in a doctor's office, and it didn't distract from him. And then there was a third, but basically there were like three. Oh yes, there was one where this was right in the beginning of the pandemic, and where it was like, you might not be able to go to your own kid's wedding. Like, you know, it was a self-care thing. And so basically all the actors were filming on their phones, and there was this woman who was supposed to be like the mother of the bride is in her beautiful home, and, you know, clearly far away from where her daughter's getting married. And the only people at her daughter's wedding is the priest, the groom, and then you have like computers and cell phones on seats. And she shot in what was probably like a Westchester or Connecticut. Like, she did not live in a little New York apartment. She clearly lived in a beautiful house. And she sat there on her couch doing the thing, and I thought, she's going to book it. Like, she looks perfect. And all of a sudden, we are in the world of a well-to-do mother of the bride. Booked it. I mean, not only are these actors great, but they're creating a world. Then again, I've seen some people like do stuff in the kitchen, but the kitchen is overflowing with stuff, and like you look more at the stuff than the actor, or it can be really distracting. So it depends.
Okay. No, I think that's pretty good advice. I mean, I'm just going to mirror back what I heard you say. And it's basically, if you can create the world, great, but don't overdo it. Don't have it distract from your performance. Right. That's not what it's about. It's not about your backdrop. It's still about the acting. You can create the world. Great. Awesome. Bonus.
Minimal. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. So, and I know we talked initially, you know, or in your intro, and I mentioned that you were casting a couple of indie features right now, but you also have cast a lot of commercials. You still one more time. Are you still casting commercials right now? And what's the big difference between casting commercials and casting pilots, TV series, films, whatever?
Well, right now, there's a television series and I think 3 indies that are all not gone, but on hold. And again, as someone who's immunocompromised, I feel fine about that, because it's like, if you don't have the resources to get your shit together in terms of safety, just hold. So I'm proud of these people for not pushing themselves and possibly putting lives at risk for it. Commercials, that's been chugging along. I mean, last week I did 3 commercials on an industrial. By the end of the week, I was like, it was crazy amounts of work, and a lot of union stuff too, which is awesome.
Oh, good.
They seem to be, you know, doing really, really well and moving along. And the difference is timing. Like, I would say there's craziness to all of it, but commercials move the fastest, TV would be second, and then film, there's a little bit more time to play and breathe.
Right.
All of it.
Right. So, but are you doing self-tapes as well for commercials?
We are. We're doing the initial round of self-tapes. And look, I wish they'd put, like, as far as I'm concerned, like, hey, if I could do those virtual auditions and then bill them for it, which is not a lot of money, actually, what Joe charges, and then say, like, okay, let me do my initials like virtual callbacks, but I can be there the whole time.
Right.
And they're like, well, do you really need to do that? And I'll say, no, that can do self-tape, but understand that the actors are going to make a lot of choices where you're going to go, what were you thinking? And that has been like the biggest surprise for me. Yeah. So again, like, warning, I can't control the weird shit people do, but like, if you want to save that tiny little bit of money, go ahead and save it, but that's where it is. And so we've been doing self-tapes for initials, but I have seen weird, crazy, inexplicable shit. For instance, a woman who's a series regular on a New York City based procedural, who has been a series regular for as long as that damn show has been on, and I feel like it's in its like 10th or 11th season. She filmed herself like in the widest shot possible and in profile.
Okay, yeah, now I'm going, what? Who? What? Okay.
Yeah, she's like a few years younger than us. She like, there's nothing that would make you think on any level that she wouldn't be able to like just nail a self-tape.
Yeah.
Nope. floor, like literally like put the goddamn computer on the floor. It's pointing up to her and you can see it like the ceiling, and she is turned to the side. And I was just like, okay, crazy. I have no, or then like I'll get, 6 different versions of self-tapes where each time I'll say, you know what, being backlit with floor to ceiling windows, not a good idea.
Yeah.
Just turn it around so that the beautiful light, all that lovely natural light you have in your apartment, congratulations, is coming towards you, not from behind you. And I'll get 6 versions of the same thing. So it's,
Wow. Okay. So the choices you're seeing, because I was wondering when you said choices, but it seems to be more choices in terms of technical stuff rather than weird choices in terms of weird acting choices. Because when you said weird choices, I thought, whoa, are people doing like weird commercial stuff? Just, okay.
sometimes less of that. It's more about the technical problems,
Okay.
or I won't even know because they're shooting it so strangely in terms of lighting or angle or
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, that like I don't even really quite know what they're doing. So I
Okay.
don't know if their acting choices are great or not great. I can't really see their eyes.
Okay. Another great tip. You have to see people's eyes. Cool. Okay. Okay. I'm going to change the subject just a little bit. You cast Sharknado too,
A little
right?
bit of it, just the New York.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, I love that you did. I love the whole concept of Sharknado. I love that the movie, I love the Sharknado and Sharknado 2, because it's one of those things, I saw one of those internet memes someplace. It said, next time you think you have a crazy idea, just remember somebody said, hey, let's make a movie about tornadoes and put sharks in it. You can do anything you want. And I love that. So I love the whole concept behind it. So it was, I think it's just funny. It's just good fun. Um, was
Can
there
I just say
any?
something about that too, though? I'm going to say something. They're probably going to get sued for this, but here we go.
Uh-huh.
Mike Fenton was the casting director based in LA. And so I thought
Uh-huh.
he was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, oh my God, you cast like the fucking Godfather and the Goonies and like all the movies I grew up with.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I love you and I worship you and like all
Uh-huh.
hail Mike Fenton. And so we didn't talk that much, but I would call him up once in a while and be like, sir, I don't understand what's going on. Like, he would just, just try to laugh and like be a cool older guy or whatever. I was like basically bottom line, I will say this. I'm not sure that the director or the production company or anyone that I spoke to understood that it wasn't Schindler's List.
Really? Okay.
Uh-huh.
That is very interesting. So when you say that, just like what they took it with the same degree of seriousness? Or, oh, that's interesting. But then again, from a business standpoint, it's real money, it's real cash, this is real business, right? So, but I don't know, I'm with you. I think to me it's a fun fantasy. Let's put sharks in a tornado
It's
piece.
camp.
Yeah.
But I had to like cast the 2 teenage roles that were based in New York, and like there was not one part of me that was like, I don't think, I mean, I didn't understand any of that. Like the director would call me screaming and yelling, and like, it was because like he didn't think that the powers that be like wanted the better actor. Like it was
Uh-huh.
it was with this passion of like, we're making a masterpiece, and I still don't understand. Because there was like, I remember right in the beginning, I would be like, but it is Sharknado. So, and it was like met with silence. Yeah. What was also fascinating about that process, again, like it was like this whole thing was as weird as sharks in a tornado. The whole thing was just as
Yeah.
weird. That I would have all of these younger people who was like legal 18 to play 16 or whatever, they'd show up for callbacks and they would seem so hungry for it because they want to be part of this ridiculous franchise. And then I was like, well, did you see the first movie? Because by the way, number 1, it's callbacks. Number 2, it's a scene from the first movie, because they were so precious about that script. They wouldn't even give out sides from Sharknado 2. They had a lock and key.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't allowed to read Sharknado 2. Everything, it was so top secret, and like we had a scene from the first one, and like and
Uh-huh.
they hadn't, like, it was like I think one person that came in for callbacks had actually seen it. So the hunger seemed there, but no one had actually done their homework, and these are New York actors. And I was like, is this cursed? Like, I don't know what's happening here.
Huh.
So yeah, I was happy to be done with that, and I wish I could have collaborated with like a great like Mike Fenton on something that was,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
It's a good story though. It's a really good story.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so just something else that kind of caught my attention in there. So you were saying that the actors who were auditioning hadn't watched Sharknado 1?
And
Really?
I was like, motherfuckers, I mean, whenever they were 18 years old, I figure, I was like, go home, get high as fuck, and watch it. What are you doing? Like, with all due respect, your homework is the awesomest homework ever. Go home and be awesome. No.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Okay, that's again, great story, funny, and good advice too for all the actors who watch this. Do your homework, do your fucking homework, right?
Right. Like, I have a
Yeah.
friend who I love, and he works all the time, but like he'll be like, yeah, I got a Blacklist audition. Have you ever seen it? No. And it's like, all right,
Wow.
just try though. Just try. I don't watch the
Yeah.
Blacklist either, but if I had an audition for it, or if I was interviewing for a casting position on it, I'd watch
Uh-huh.
an episode or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you something, as I talk to a lot of actors, and I find I've heard so many, especially younger actors, say, "Yeah, but I don't watch a lot of TV, or I don't like that show," and it's like, I don't care. Honestly, like, just like watch it anyway. Like, you've got a big audition for, something like a major series. Like you said, back up, sweetheart. Watch a few episodes.
We want to be
Um,
able to feel like the rhythm, the tone, the cadence in your
yes.
body,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
think of it like you're a musician. Like, you just want to feel the tone and the feel of it, so that way you can, like, the world that you're in. You don't have to like it, and if you really, really are allergic to it, pass. Because I'll
Yeah.
tell you why. Because that casting director, especially, let's say it's like a network episodic, they got like 4,000
Mm,
submissions per
right.
role. And let's say they only have 20 slots for that role. Do the math. If you
Yeah.
are really allergic to that shit, my God will reward you. Give it to another actor by
Mm,
passing.
cool.
It's
Really good
hard.
advice.
Thank
That's a
you.
good one. So, more questions just about casting, and then I want to ask you about headshots and whatnot, what actors can do. But so, what do you think? Because you've done so much casting, what is your like secret superpower as a casting director? What are you really good at, or what's the thing you really love to do in the casting process?
I I love actors. I have to be really honest with you. As you can see
Hmm.
from this conversation we've had up until this point, I'm usually not a huge fan of the other people that I'm either like a major fan of the people I work with. Like, I actually just
Uh-huh.
wrote a tribute piece to Angie Day in like in a Medium
Hmm.
article. I was like, if every showrunner could be this woman, and I didn't mention
Wow.
her name, but her name is Angie Day, and she's amazing. And like, I either love you, or I'm like, oh my God, like, ugh, why does it have to be so hard? And often it's coming, there's a lot of way too hard. It doesn't need to be this hard, but never with the actors. The actors are
Mm.
awesome. So my favorite part is being with the actors in initial auditions and just being able to collaborate and say, like, look, let's make each other look great. And then I think I give
Awesome.
decent direction and
Uh-huh.
decent coaching, and just helping an actor look incredible and keeping the best takes, so that, when they get to callbacks, they feel really, really strong, confident, and empowered. I love actors.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I love hearing that. And I think there's a lot of actors who are going to love hearing that too, because actors kind of get weird sometimes about casting directors. Casting directors all the time say, but we want you guys to look good. We really, really do. You look good, then I look good. It all works together. So very
That's
cool.
true. Yes, and that's true. Also, I do have to say, like, I got married in 2012, and at one point,
Hmm.
I looked around my wedding, and I was like, Jesus Christ, there is not one agent or casting director in this room, and nor
Oh,
were any
wow.
invited. And I'll tell
Uh-huh.
you, it's that I love certain agents. I also think a lot of them are
Hmm.
dipshits. I also love some casting directors, but clearly not enough to invite to my wedding. So I can understand that, like, actors, that we might be saying a lot of stuff like, we want you to, but then they walk in
Yeah.
and the energy feels weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 But also know this, and yeah, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of casting directors myself, but like, I will say this: you have the actors, a lot of whom are very, very, very nice to us because they know that we're the gatekeepers. On the other
Mhm.
side of the table, and I think it's important for actors to know this, we're getting like pistol whipped by producers
Mm,
and being constantly told, on a subtext level, bitch, you're expendable. You are
mm,
easily replaceable, and I can get
right.
somebody else to do your job and pay them half the amount of money. So suck it. And like that is what we are subtly being told, no matter how hard we work, and that no matter how much our boundaries are violated. You know, a lot of cast directors don't have kids, including me. There's a reason for
Mhm.
that, I think.
Mhm.
It's like a sun up to like 7 a.m. I'm getting emails, but then at like 2 in the morning I'm getting emails and getting,
Right.
expect them to be returned. With the Sharknado thing, I remember the director running on his treadmill screaming at me at 10 o'clock at night LA time. That's 1
Oh,
o'clock in the morning my time, and I'm on
wow.
the phone. So I think that like it's important for actors to realize that if the casting director is acting weird, they might be weird, no doubt, but it's also out of fear. It's fear that it's going to be their last job. So one of the
Yeah.
best things that actors can do is walk in like it's a good second date, not with a making out part, you know what I'm saying, but like just to be like, hey, girl, like I hear you, I've got you, I'm
Yeah.
prepared, I've got your back, let's do this, we're in this together. Because I feel like that
Yeah.
we come across as cold, but really I think we're just a bunch of children that need support.
Aw. Aw. I love that. But excuse me. Another thing I was going to say though, this is, and I've been in the business a long time. Like this is kind of a lifetime deal here. Um, and for a while, for a couple of years, I was lived in London and I worked as a producer's assistant. And that was really eye-opening to see the other side of it. And it was an independent producer. So like you have to hustle, you have to get everybody on board, you have to bring the financing in, you don't eat. And you saw the same thing, like you're hiring casting directors and you're hiring talent. And it's an industry of perpetually unemployed people. And I think actors tend to forget that, or people who haven't worked on the other side of things, that just about everybody in the industry, everybody who's sustaining the industry, everybody who's doing the bread and butter work, as I call it, not the top 0.01%, not the A-listers, but the rest of us are just going from job to job to job all the time. Whether you're an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, a casting director, a makeup artist, whatever the fuck you're doing, you're just going job to job. And none of us know if this is going to be our last job or if we are not going to eat for 5 years or whatever it is. And it's easy to forget that. But yeah, it's like, I know it's become cliche now with the pandemic to say we're all in this together, but with this industry, we really are, So that's just my take on things.
Yeah, except like I had a bad feeling about pandemic that shit was going to get even more out of hand and
Mm,
abusive, and like we don't have
yeah,
any
yeah.
money, so you're going to tell me how grateful you are for the half your rate I'm paying you, and that's exactly what's happening
Wow.
with a lot of
Yeah.
jobs. It's pretty fucked up out there. So like the entertainment industry
Interesting.
can turn things toxic really, really easily. So it's really imperative for us together as actors and casting people to be like, yeah, no, that's not okay.
Cool. Yeah, I
Yeah, because
agree.
they get whatever they want. Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's just there's great things about this industry, but there's things that are not so great either. It's got a bit of a dark side, um, more so that I think than other businesses do. I don't know. I've been in a lot of other businesses, but it just seems, it seems like this one has a bit more of it can get shady fast,
My
So you
sister
have to,
is the relationship columnist for the Boston Globe, and
oh,
she
cool.
my husband had to go up to Cape Cod to hang out with his parents for a few weeks, and Meredith, my sister, was just here for 2 weeks. And I think that my husband and my sister have always had this underlying feeling, kind of like what you were just saying of I don't really know much else, but I also know this business
Mm,
is tough. That like, well, Brett, if you worked in other industries, you'd also understand that every industry is fucked up. But then when my sister
mm,
left at the end of 2 weeks, she was like, I now understand why you have an autoimmune disease and why you're in so much pain. Like I've watched you work and I've listened to you read these emails, and she's like, it makes sense to me now. It's bad.
yeah.
It's really, really bad. And so, and it's interesting. It reminds me of the story. There was a woman who interviewed to be my intern. This is years ago when I was working on a TV series that offered me like a fancy office to put her in and all this stuff. And she had just come from this casting director's office who like gets all the fancy work. Like this casting director has like the best, she's like, you know, the Allison Jones of New York, a few years younger than I am. And she had just come from her office. And I was like, Jesus, why are you up in here? Like I would be hanging out with her if I were you. And she said, oh no, she's great. And I'm definitely considering if she offers me something, I would love to work for her. She was also covered in blood. And I was like, what do you mean covered in blood? And she said, bleeding eczema. And I was like, okay, that's, so what the fuck is going on there? And she said, yeah, this is what happens when she has a flare up. She said she wouldn't wish this job on her worst enemy. And this woman's an amazing casting director, and she casts a lot of fancy, amazing shit, but clearly couldn't shake her hand because her hands are all bloody with eczema. That's how stressful. Like you think that just because that like their life is kind of like cool and fun and awesome, not necessarily, because it's a stressful industry. So
it really is.
Yeah, like you do the stuff you love, and it's all about the relationships, and we all have to breathe through all of it. But like I love actors because they're usually very open about the struggle being real, and I'm right there with you guys on that. So yeah.
And thank you for being open about it, because again, I think a lot of times actors, I'm not even going to say they forget, because I think a lot don't know. A lot, you know, just, and especially younger actors, when you've been around the industry a bit, you get the idea more, and you go, yeah, we're all just trying to like pay our bills, make a living, have a good life, right? So, and it is kind of a crazy fucked up industry, but it's what we got, honey. It's ours. I know, yay, go team.
Totally.
Okay, it's another question for you, just about actors' materials. For actors putting together their headshots, their resumes, their reels. Is there any kind of advice you could offer on that? And how important are reels to you?
Well, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I have a fantasy that in LA, because you guys are always ahead of us with technology. I mean, I remember when you guys had moved over to color headshots, and we were like,
oh, I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I remember out of my mouth for like 5 years after you guys were doing color headshots, I was being like, if you have a color headshot, you're fucking trailer trash. Like, I remember stuff like that coming out of my mouth. Or it looks like you. I don't know. Maybe that could be an alternative response to that. Jesus.
That was a big thing, though. I remember that when it was a big thing. It's just like, color headshots, we're doing what? That was so rad at the time, you know?
Right. And you guys, like with everything else, were way ahead of us. So here's my question.
Yeah.
You guys moved into a world where reels are becoming obsolete, because they should be, because they're stupid, and we should move over to clips. Are you guys ahead of us where that's concerned?
I would say most casting directors, I think, are. They do want to see clips. And again, it depends on the casting director. Some say it's got to be, you know, network material only. And other people say, I don't care, just record something. I just want to see what you can do. Like, I want to have some material online, but clips, like 30-second clips, right? As opposed to watching the vast majority of casting directors I've spoken to want clips, not reels.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And you guys will beat us there. So I just, it's funny when when Hunter and I were talking earlier, she was saying like, oh, and if you don't want to, like you can pause, I can edit. And I was thinking, oh, good. Because like, I mean, one thing I hate is editing. Like I suck at it. Like I don't like doing it. I always like have to start from square one. It's like a mental block that I have. And like, I can't imagine. And I know that we're in pandemic right now, and it's not like every single thing is shooting like it used to. Like I understand, but in a world where we have so much content being created other than in pandemic or whatever, how do you maintain a beautiful, tight 2-minute reel? Like, to me, that's so much fucking work. And I just wish that like actors didn't have to have that pain. I wish we would just be totally in a world of clips and make actors' lives easier. It's just one more burden you shouldn't have to have. That's my opinion.
Cool. Thank you. So then how important are clips, Jude? You really need every actor to have clips. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it's important. It's important, like, because we can't do those in-house pre-screens like we used to. And also because it having the clips on your Actors Access profile or your Casting Networks or Casting Frontier or like whatever those platforms are. It's important so then we don't have to like copy and paste a YouTube link or go to your website.
Right.
Because I want you to remember that we're dealing in quantity here. If we have like
Right.
2,500 submissions per role, have some clips on your, you know, like I'll fucking pay for it. I just put some clips on your damn thing so I don't have to like keep going to another window because you wouldn't spend a total of $20 or $100 to like have clips that'll stay there for the rest of your life. Just do it. It's a tax deduction. So, but it helps.
Cool. Good to know. Good to know. What else was I going to ask you about clips? Oh, yes. Okay. So, and do you want them to be clips from show? Do you want like network quality stuff, or can actors record stuff with, I don't know, their buddies or something and put them up there?
Anything.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. Thanks. Let's see, what else did I
and also label them clearly. Like what I would ideally like to be able to do is just know something. I mean, if it's a show that of course I've heard of or something like that, you don't need to like explain it, but like I basically need to know where to go for the comedy, where to go for the drama, and commercial. And I just need to like know what I'm clicking on. Yeah,
and that's something. Actually, I don't think I've talked about that, but I think more and more actors are getting to know that. So if it's whatever clip you have, you would put, you know, dramatic role, mother having a heart-to-heart with her daughter or something, just so that casting knows what the F it is, right? So, because it could be from anything. So, and even unless it's a really, really, really well-known show, because there's so many shows out there today. You know, just a quick sidebar here. Last year, I was on the SAG nom-com committee for the SAG Awards, nominations committee for the SAG Awards. And I thought, you know, initially I thought, okay, I'm going to be so good at this and I'm going to do my due diligence and I'm going to watch at least one episode of every show. There were 800 shows up for the running. Was it 800? Or maybe it's 800 total, but maybe it was 400 for the dramatic series. And I went, okay, I cannot watch a single episode of even 400 series.
Wait, what did you do?
I mean, I watched it, whatever I could, and now I understand. And Netflix went hard with the DVDs, man. You know, it was so interesting because when you got a watch code, and then you had to like put it into your computer, and you either had to watch it on the computer, or then you had to somehow get it over to your TV, which I'm, you know, not super fantastic at. But there's like, I watched as much as I could, and things that I could kind of break down by category, like things that I already knew. It's like, okay, that's off the list. I know what's going on. But there was just no way to watch a single episode of every single show that was up for an award and even decide on the nominations. I look at your face. So, and then it gave me a greater appreciation for what you guys go through with 4,000 submissions, because I'm going, you physically cannot. You have to have a weeding out process. So that also made me think, if I'm putting a scene from something, I can't just say it's from Take Time Tomorrow or whatever it is, because you may not know what the fuck that is. You know, you may not actually have heard of it. So it's just, you know, mother having heart-to-heart with daughter. Bang, got it. Yeah.
God, that's too big of an expectation to put on you. Like, that's nuts. 800 things you're supposed to watch. And
yeah, I mean, and just no, there's absolutely no way anybody can. Like, just doing the math, the numbers on that, even if you're watching 22 minutes of something, you just physically cannot. You know, you just, at the time, this was last year, so it was pre-pandemic, and we're actually out roaming the streets and had lives, right? So yeah, do what you can. I watched a ton of stuff over several months period. Got very familiar with a lot more stuff, but yeah. So just a little, a little FYI. Okay, couple more questions and I will let you go. How do actors get on your radar if you don't know them?
I think that, okay, there's a few ways. My email for actors is talent@brettegoldstein.com, but I will say this, if you haven't guessed by now, like, emails are the bane of my existence. I hate it. It's like the only way people communicate with me. It's nonstop and it's hell on earth. Like, I even noticed yesterday, and you wanted a confirmation on today's thing from me yesterday. I didn't even see the goddamn email, and I was just like, oh my God, fuck, I got to get back to Hunter.
going to text you, but I was aware too that you might not see that. I'm going to send you like a 1-line email. If you see it, great, because I get it. We all get just so much shit in our inboxes. And
Right.
how do you begin to filter?
Right. It's been too much. And that's like why I miss those pre-digital days where like you get a postcard and like you weren't going to write a postcard, like people just expect to like not hear back. And it was an easier, so I feel like I'm in a state of perpetual guilt because I'm not getting back to everybody like I want to be getting back to them. And I will say that I release not 100%, but a lot of my breakdowns on public boards somehow, whether it be through Access or through casting networks. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I'm easy to find in terms of, class. I teach a lot because I actually.
That was going to be my next question, because I know you teach, and I was going to say, where do you teach, and are you teaching virtually? You must be teaching virtually right now, and how do people find you, and yada, yada, yada. So maybe you can talk about that too.
Any of the formal classes I'm teaching are basically now through Actors Connection, which is based here in New York.
Okay.
I think their website is actorsconnection.com. And I love, and look, I understand the Krikorian Act. I understand the pay to play thing. I understand all of this shit. I also understand that like that they get up and they make the announcement and they say these are for educational purposes only. But like you're not there because I'm fucking Uta Hagen. You're there because ultimately you want to like create a relationship and get cast and stuff. Like I understand all sides to it. But one thing I'm very confident about is I'm really good at seeing people, at telling people what it is about them that really pops, the stories I think that they were put on this earth to tell, and what their it factor is, and incorporating that into all of my work as a teacher. I believe that you should, unless it's a biopic, something stylized, or a period piece, that you make the character your bitch and you make the script your bitch, and I want to see the character through your eyes. So I'm very proud of myself. I come from a long line of teachers, and I love the work that I create, way more so than casting, in the teaching and coaching space. So like if it's not a workshop or a seminar, or if I don't, like the best way to I like going direct. Like if you think you're right for a project, then submit, email me, like do the whole thing, and I'll look at your stuff and consider you for that. What I've done, I think least of all, are generals. There's a company out there called We Audition, and I did like an hour of generals, and there was like a list of people waiting for me, and I felt so terrible. I think I got through 7 people because I'm too chatty. Like for me, sitting down with an actor and having an hour-long conversation is awesome, but it's also like, I assume you're going to be awesome. I love actors. So I get a lot more from like digging into the work. So that's like kind of the new side of me. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And you're right, in terms of casting director workshops, and you're right, there's different reasons. As an actor, there are different reasons you study with different people. And I've worked with a lot of acting coaches over the years, and different, vocal coaches and everybody else. But casting directors, and each casting director I find brings something unique. Everybody brings something unique. Anybody that you respect in the industry is going to bring something unique. And usually casting directors are very good at that, because, and what you said about telling people what their it factor is, that's almost branding in a way. And from an actor's standpoint, that can be a little bit hard to know sometimes. And I will say, as a woman of a certain age, and you're changing, you're trying to figure things out as you go along, and you're not always sure how other people see you. It's like, I know how I feel, and I look in the mirror one day and think, bitch, who are you? What happened?
Well, like there's this thing like about you for a second, right, that I find really lovely, which is that, but first of all, and like this is not to like this is not to blow smoke up your ass, but like people in New York, I know we have a lot of beautiful people here, but for the most part, like the actors here do not look like you. Like I can see you for 2 seconds and know what coast you live on, because the actors here are not as put together as you are. They just aren't. I mean, you are gorgeous.
Thank
you.
And
the thing is, though, part of what comes along with that, with the cheekbones and the jaw and the hair and the dress and like and the perfectly organized space and this look of like, I have worked on this. I'm proud of what I've cultivated here, can often be accompanied by a bit of a distance or a coldness or a little bit of a snobbery. And one of the things that exudes from you is hope.
Ah, oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
And it's that doesn't
Huh.
necessarily always accompany like the look of leading ladiness that you have. So
Mm,
there is a youthful vibrance and joy and hope would be the number one thing
mm,
that like that radiates off of you, that makes you like that makes you even more unique and special for like the type or whatever that you
mm.
are. And I love that about you, Hunter.
Oh, wow, thank you. Oh, that just went to my heart. And it's just and again, that was just wonderful and warm and lovely to receive, but also really good feedback. Because like I said, we all live in our own little worlds and our own little heads, and these days in our own four walls. And, this I spend lots of time, you wander around muttering and kind of wondering if you're doing anything worthwhile in the world. So that's really lovely feedback. Thank you. And it's also the type of thing that I think casting directors have a really unique eye for. In my experience, casting directors tend to get the essence of somebody super, super frigging fast. You guys just do. And you cut to the chase really, really fast. And acting coaches who, if you're working on, Meisner method or something, it's a whole different ballgame. It just is, right? But casting directors just get shit fast. We'll say, okay, here's the deal. You know, don't do that and do more of this. And that's where your money is. So good advice.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Oh,
Like people probably expect you to be like this bad bitch, and it's not like you're not.
yeah,
You are.
yeah.
But there's also this beautiful sensitivity and vulnerability with you that you have to have if hope is like one of your number one character
Oh,
strengths. And like, and it's just it's lovely. There's a
thank
vitality
you.
that we're and yes, and I do hope that all the casting directors are seeing that in you, because it makes you uh again like unique and special in addition to just being a gorgeous leading lady. So yeah,
Thank you.
you're right, we have to do it very quickly, we don't have a lot of time.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like I said, that's just some of the best advice I've ever had in the business has come from casting directors. It's come from working with casting directors and getting to know them, like in workshop situations, and then not so much even workshops, but I really like it when I get the chance to do like 4 weeks or 8 weeks with somebody, because then you do really build a relationship and you really get to see what's important and also what's important for that person in the room, and there's just a wealth of knowledge there. So, Brett, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been so wonderful. What a lovely break in my week, and just that you've shared some amazing information. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you. I mean, I think you're wonderful. I love what you're creating, for what you've created for actors.
Mhm.
I love spending some time with you today. It's a great kickoff to the holiday weekend. Thank you.
Woohoo! Yay! Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.